All right, today we're breaking down a really significant event, the massive, coordinated attacks that swept across Pakistan's Balochistan province in early 2026. And look, this wasn't just some small local skirmish. This was an operation that sent shockwaves through the entire country and had the whole world paying attention. So let's get right into it.
So picture this, it's January 30th. Suddenly, a wave of attacks erupts, not in one place, but pretty much all at once across at least 9 different districts. We are talking about a sophisticated, province-wide operation that kicked off a full week of some really intense fighting.
And you have to understand, this was anything but random. The Balochistan Liberation Army, you'll hear them called the BLA, they stepped up and claimed responsibility almost immediately. They even gave it a name, Operation Harov 2.0. And Harov, in the local language, means Black Storm. Honestly, a pretty perfect description for the chaos they were about to unleash.
So let's just walk through how this all played out. The attacks, like we said, start on the 30th. By the very next day, Pakistani security forces were scrambling to launch a massive response. The fighting got especially brutal in the town of Nushki. It took a full 3 days for the government to finally get that town back under control. And then by February 5th, Pakistan made it official. Their counter-operation was over.
Now look at the sheer variety of targets here. This tells a huge part of the story. They didn't just go after military outposts and police stations. No, they hit schools, markets, government offices, even camps for migrant workers. They blew up railway tracks. The message was clear. This wasn't just about fighting soldiers. This was a calculated strike designed to paralyze the entire state and disrupt everyday life for everyone.
So once the guns fell silent, a totally different kind of fight began. This was a battle for the narrative. The aftermath was just shrouded in this thick fog of war, with both sides pushing completely different stories about what really went down. On the government side, the official response was this huge, sweeping campaign called Operation Rad-ul-Fitna 1. This wasn't just a military thing. They brought in the army, the police, intelligence agencies, the whole shebang, in a really coordinated effort to just dismantle these militant networks across the province.
And this is where you can really see that information war in action. Just look at these numbers. They're not just different, they're from completely different realities. The Pakistani government says they killed 216 militants while losing only 22 of their own. The BLA, they claim they lost a mere 18 fighters while taking out 280 security personnel. These figures aren't even in the same ballpark, which just shows you how impossible it was to know what was truly happening on the ground.
So to really get why this happened, we've got to zoom out, way out. This violence didn't just appear out of nowhere in 2026. It's born from decades of history and some really deep-seated grievances that have been fueling this separatist movement for generations.
So that's the big question, right? What is at the absolute core of this thing? What's been driving this insurgency for over 70 years? Well, it really boils down to a few key issues that just keep coming up. First, there's this powerful feeling that the province's incredible natural wealth, we're talking gas, minerals, is being siphoned off by the central government, with almost none of the benefits ever making it back to the local people. Then you've got this sense of being politically ignored, a fear that their unique culture is being wiped out. And on top of all that, a very painful history of alleged human rights abuses, especially the enforced disappearances of activists.
And this timeline just drives that point home. This is not a new problem. The first armed uprising was way back in 1948, right after Balochistan officially became part of Pakistan. There have been several waves of intense conflict since then, with the current phase really picking up steam in the 2000s. But then, in 2015, a new massive factor enters the equation, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC, and that became a whole new lightning rod for attacks.
Now, it's really important to get this. The insurgency is not some single unified group. It's actually a whole network of different factions, each with its own leaders, its own turf, and its own tactics. So let's break down who the main players actually are. So while you might hear about 10 or so active groups, when it comes to the major attacks in 2026, 2 of them were really the ones running the show. They were the dominant forces on the ground.
First up, you have the BLA, the Balochistan Liberation Army. Think of them as the ones who go for the big, spectacular, headline-grabbing attacks. Then you've got the Balochistan Liberation Front, the BLF. Their strategy is a little different. It's more about constant, small-scale guerrilla warfare to keep relentless pressure on security forces. And what's really crucial is that these two, along with other groups, will often team up for their biggest operations under this umbrella alliance they call BRASS.
And within the BLA, there's one unit you absolutely have to know about, the Majid Brigade. This is their elite suicide squad. They are the ones responsible for some of the most complex and lethal attacks, especially the assaults on Chinese interests that get so much international attention.
So you might be wondering, okay, this is a regional conflict. Why does it matter to me or to the rest of the world? Well, the truth is it has huge global implications, and it all revolves around one gigantic project.
And that project is CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. This thing is a cornerstone of China's giant Belt and Road Initiative. In simple terms, it's a massive network of roads, railways, and pipelines. And its whole purpose is to connect Gwadar Port, right there in Balochistan on the Arabian Sea, directly to Western China. It gives Beijing a critical strategic shortcut to the ocean.
And the price tag on this thing? It is absolutely staggering. We're talking about an investment valued at over $62 billion. This isn't just a road. It's a project that is fundamentally reshaping the politics and economics of the entire region.
So you can see why, for these insurgent groups, CPEC is way more than just infrastructure. To them, it is the ultimate symbol of what they see as foreign powers exploiting their land and their resources. And for that reason, CPEC projects and the Chinese nationals who work on them have become a #1 target. And that brings us full circle to why the whole world was watching. The 2026 attacks were immediately condemned, and not just by countries in the region. We're talking China, of course, but also the United States, France, Turkey, even the UN Security Council weighed in. It's a huge sign of the global stakes that are at play here. Which leaves us with this one really critical question. On the one hand, you see insurgent tactics getting more and more sophisticated. On the other, you have global powers with billions of dollars invested in the region's stability. But the question is, can any kind of lasting peace ever really be achieved without getting to the heart of those deep, historical grievances that have been fueling this fire for generations? That remains the central challenge.